And welcome back to the program. So while so many people are looking at the runoff election in Georgia, and it is pivotal in terms of who will control the Senate, it's also important to note what the President of the United States is doing tomorrow when members of Congress start their new session and they're supposed to count the electoral college votes. Well, here's a problem. The President of the United States and some members of Congress on the Republican side in the House and the Senate are actually vowing to contest the electoral votes. What does that mean? Joining me now is Timothy Allen Simon and Mark Harris, attorneys at large, but they're also attorneys who represent a lot in terms of the people of California, and they also know politics. Gentlemen, I don't know what to say about this. We're going to see it unfold tomorrow here in the nation's capital. The mayor has called out the National Guard. 300 National Guard troops will be on the scene tonight and tomorrow to protect Black Lives Matter Plaza, to protect Black churches, and to protect the people, the good citizens of the nation's capital, Black, white, brown, yellow, red, whatever, from the people who are here to support the president, the current president of the United States, Donald Trump. What is going on?
This is madness on so many different levels. Let me start, though, Kelly, by saying that I'm not going to take the negative path. I'm going to try to be factually accurate, but I'm tired of the steady drum beat of negativity. I know that my dear friend, Commissioner Simon, Happy New Year to you, Timothy, and to Kimberly. But I'm going to try to be positive throughout 2021 and still keep it real. Let me say this. What I'm most worried about is what you pointed out at the end of your statement. My son is a parishioner at Metropolitan AME Church, the oldest African Methodist Episcopalian church in the country, of course, based right there in Washington, D.C. I'm worried about Black churches. I'm worried about what the Proud Boys did in ripping off the Black Lives Matter banner and burning it. There will be some pandemonium and some chaos that I hope the good mayor of Washington, D.C. will have under control. But what I'm most worried about is the fact that the Vice President of the United States may choose not to certify the election. Whoa. I mean, with all the different things that we've been talking about, there's no constitutional mandate that he do it. There is, if you will, a recommendation that he do it, but there's nothing, no teeth behind forcing him to do it. What happens if Pence just fails to certify the election tomorrow? I don't know, and that's what I'm most concerned about.
President Donald Trump immediately went after Joe Biden through Hunter Biden early in the presidential election process, recognizing that Biden was his most formidable contender. He then came out and said that the only way this man can win, or the Democrats could win, is if the election was rigged. So he put the marker out there to his base that it is, if they win, it's a rigged election, without any substantial evidence or proof. That's the loyalty of his base. And then what the Republicans have effectively done and will continue to do in their obstructionist practices, which I have said began when Mitch McConnell said that Barack Obama will be a one-term president, is utilizing the Constitution and its amendments for the purposes of havoc. Yes, the Proud Boys have a right to freedom of assembly. Yes, there is a due process, argumentative or deliberative process within Congress. So there are levers that they're exercising that are actually constitutional. I know that's hard for us to sometimes accept in our civil libertarian society, but in fact, it is being utilized for purposes of obstruction and mayhem. And that will be what the historians say about the Republican Party.
So my question to both of you is the character of America and the future of the Republic at stake with what the president and his followers are doing?
You know, I have to borrow from medical science again. Scars matter. Scars leave an impact. This country has been scarred by the presidency of Donald Trump. It will continue to be scarred even after he leaves Black Lives Matter Plaza and goes back to whatever it is he's going to do over the next several years. It's up to us. It's incumbent upon us to not parrot some of the worst behaviors of this president. I would hope that my fellow Democrats would not follow along and feel tit for tat is in order, that we're going to play get back on this. That game will destroy the democracy, destroy the very fabric of this country. So I implore your viewers, I implore the Congress, I implore our leaders to take the high road and to do the right thing going forward and minimize the damage to this country and to this country's grand democracy moving forward.
Very good sentiment that you're echoing right there. In particular, it reminds me of the former First Lady of the United States, Michelle Obama, who often said, when they go low, we go high. Timothy, if we keep that high standard, can we help heal the soul of America, which is what President-elect Joe Biden has been talking about?
You know, for those of us who are descendants of the enslaved, we've seen the moral character of this nation. We've seen how it has created a system that Isabel Wilkerson has titled caste, that has subjugated us under their form of democracy. We are not a perfect union. We're seeking to become a perfect union. I was not fully in compliance with the First Lady's statement of when they go low, we go high. How do you define high? I think there's a certain point where the public wants to see the Democratic Party and those who truly believe in American freedom, those true patriots, to fight back and fight back hard. Malcolm X said, any means necessary. And I think we're coming to that boiling point in this country, no matter how disruptive and painful it may be. The bell of freedom must ring. This resistance to the election results is targeted at the African American population centers. The Republicans have decided that those votes are not valid. This is not much different than the water hoses and the dogs and the lynchings that occurred as we fought for our rights to vote under the Voting Rights Act, a Voting Rights Act that has not been recertified. So I think we have to put it into perspective and understand that we're going to go through a disruptive period in this country. But I think it is necessary in order to protect our franchise as full-blown citizens that, by the way, built this country, the United States of America.
Gentlemen, thank you. We'll be right back after the break to talk to you about coronavirus as it is impacting California, which is your home state. That's next. Gentlemen, I cannot let you go without explaining to you how I am keeping California in prayer, since it leads the nation in coronavirus cases. And, you know, the pain that's been inflicted upon your fellow citizens in that state, it's painful to watch. It's happening all across the country. We have more than 350,000 deaths in this country due to coronavirus, 20 million cases of coronavirus, and an outgoing president who continues to, you know, speak out against the election, but has not done anything from what we can see to handle the most pressing need, and that is to help people get through this coronavirus. How are things happening in your state, and what's your message to your fellow citizens in California?
You know, we have 1/8 of the country's population in California, Kelly. We're our own country. We have 40 million people who are residents of the state of California. And unfortunately, when you have that many people, you have a number of folks who are very selfish, who are very skeptical, and not following the appropriate practices consistent with medical science. I'm very disappointed to see these protests. Very few people, very few of your viewers outside of California probably really understand how conservative a state we are on so many different levels. For all the fruit and nuts reputation that we have of progressivism, we also have a very conservative core group of Californians, particularly in the more rural communities. But even in Los Angeles, there have been demonstrations against mask wearing. A big one yesterday in Century City, which is an upper crust enclave of Los Angeles. In Fresno, California, the pearl, or as we call it, the raisin of the Central Valley. They've shut down supermarkets because of the mask requirements. This is a bad situation that we have, and I would only ask for those of us from California that we show a level of empathy and that we follow the rules throughout the rest of this process that we're dealing with COVID.
Timothy?
Well, one, I want to compliment our mayor, London Breed, who sends her best, Kelly, to you.
Oh, thank you.
That here in San Francisco, we still have near a double-digit ICU capacity, and we've been under what is basically a lockdown for quite a bit. There are other counties that have not been as compliant because they probably have a more diverse mixture of political views and the views of individual rights in relations to the pandemic. This is complicated stuff, but I do believe that, and I'm not a medical doctor and an epidemiologist, but I do believe that with the rapid distribution of the vaccine, that we can find a way to eventually shave the curve. This is where our governor, Gavin Newsom, comes in. And of course, our new president-elect and vice president-elect, in having a national plan that should supersede or override the states and implementing the ability to finally conquer the pandemic. This is war. This is no different than the massing of armament, but it's a different type of armament to finally defeat this vaccine, which, as we know now, has a new mutation that is adding to the arsenal. So I believe that once we get a new administration in Washington and can work with states that are prepared to cooperate with that administration, we could begin to see daylight in the darkness of this pandemic.
Gentlemen, thank you. Mark Harris and Timothy Allen Simon, good friends and great attorneys, and certainly astute politicians who understand what's happening on the ground as it relates to the coronavirus. My prayers to all the people. And Timothy, do me a favor, tell the mayor, London Breed, thank you for the greeting. I always appreciate her. And of course, she's always welcome on the program as well. Thank you both. West Coast.
Thank you, Kelly. Happy New Year.
Thank
Appreciate you, brother.
All right, back with more after this.